can be what you want to be. Be what you want to be. You just be what you want to be with me.
Hello, beautiful people, and welcome to another episode of Happy AF. I am Sambowker, and I'm super pumped to have you here today. So, I have just gotten back from a beautiful couple of weeks away, and I want to share with you a few different things that happened for me whilst I was away that I think maybe you will be able to relate with. But first, I want to go back to before I left, okay? And I now am realising I maybe hadn't done things in a way that really probably served the highest expression of who I wanted to be in that moment. But hey, it's the way that things kind of fell. And so I have to tell myself the story that that really was what was going to serve the highest expression of me, even though in the moment it didn't feel so. So here's what happened, okay? I know that I missed last week and I'm sad that I didn't get to pre-record an episode for you, and I had the best of intentions. I was going to hang out with you live in Fiji, and then I got to Fiji and truth be told, everything else got in the way, and I allowed it to, and I went with flow and with grace, or kicking and screaming if you know me well. But anyway, let me just share what happened. Prior to going into this event, right, the event of my holiday, which had been long awaited because I was due to go back in January and then I didn't go because of COVID, and so we changed it to August, and that was great. But what happened is that coincided with 5 days of very intense business training program that I had enrolled in 12 months prior. And leading up to it, I knew it was going to be tight, okay? I knew that I was going to be doing these crazy hours because it was live and it was in America, which meant I was going from midnight to 4 o'clock in the afternoon and sleeping for a few hours. And it was insane. It was an insane schedule. But I was super pumped and I was super excited. And then it finished. Okay, and I don't know if you've ever been to a conference where it's super intense and you're getting so much and your brain is exploding with information and it's so awesome and you're loving every minute. And then it finishes, right? And you're on a bit of a high for a few days, but typically after that few days, you kind of come down, right? Or at least that is my experience, and certainly with this kind of high-level intensity event that I was at. And so for me, I finished this event, and the very next part of my journey, right, was that I went on this holiday. So I literally finished this event at 3 p.m. on one day, and at 3 a.m. the next day, I was at the airport to fly away to Fiji. Now, the reason I want to share this with you, okay, and why is this of interest to you, and what does this have to do with a show called Happy AF? Well, let me share with you. This is what it has to do with it, right? I had all these plans that I was going to do this and it was going to work like this, and then this was going to happen and this was going to happen. And of course, these plans did not go according to the way I had hallucinated they were going to go. And I'm curious, when these kinds of things happen to you, how do you respond? Right? Do you kick and scream and fight? Do you go with the flow? Are you like super adaptable? Do you even know, right? Do you have good self-awareness? Well, I thought I did, right? I thought I was pretty adaptable, and truthfully, I still think I am. I still think I am pretty adaptable. But I then arrived in Fiji, and we were meeting up with friends of ours and their kids, and it was so funny because in my head I had this vision of how it was all going to go. And I don't know anyone that has children, but if you've got children, you understand that you can't keep a plan in place, right? Like nothing, because you can't manage another human being. You certainly can't manage a child, and everybody has free will. So Mama Bear here had all these imaginings about how this trip was going to go, and then we got there. And from the minute we got there, we had a great time. It was wonderful, but it didn't go how I planned for it to go. And the first couple of days, I was really emotional, right? Like I'm talking, like I spent a chunk of time in tears. And I'm in this beautiful location. I'm with a friend. There's cocktails. It's sunny. I'm on holidays. Finally, this holiday that I'd planned 12 months prior, and I'm in tears. Now, those of you that know me well would know that I'm not a super emotional person. You don't typically see me in tears. I mean, my show is called Happy AF, for fuck's sake. I'm all about doing happy, but that doesn't mean I don't get to do emotion. And I crashed hard, right? The first couple of days there, everything that was like minor little things that would probably normally not even rate a mention seemed really huge for me, okay? And luckily for me, my friend that I happened to be away with, apart from being a fabulous human being, also happened to be a psychologist. And so she was there and she just really helped me breathe through this, I guess, space of emotion. And it was quite funny because throughout this holiday, the intention really was to drink some alcohol, eat some good food, rest and do lots of fun things with our kids. And by midway through the holiday, we both joked about something. And that was the fact that our children were triggering the shit out of us. Now, I'll set the scene for you, okay? Anybody here who has a child, right, that has ever felt triggered by an experience that their child has gone through, perhaps an experience with someone at school, or perhaps the child has, come to you and told you a story about something the teacher has done, or an experience that they've had, in a group with their friends, and you've noticed a part of you really experience it in quite an intense way. You've either felt this wave of like tingling through your body, or you've felt like, your anger rising, all of these different things. And what I noticed was going through this holiday with my friend and her 2 kids, and obviously my daughter, it was really interesting and such a growth period for both of us because we were both being so triggered by our children, right? And the way in which they were interacting and the experiences that they were having. For them, these experiences were probably fairly minor. They were probably really not even rate a mention. In fact, if they'd happened at school, we probably wouldn't have even heard about them. But she's a psychologist. I'm a mindset coach and a clinical hypnotherapist. So holy fuck, these poor kids, we're there in this situation. We just want to have a holiday, but try telling people like us to switch off. And we're here trying to micromanage the emotions of 3 children. Not an ideal situation. Certainly not a happy AF moment. It was more of a fuck me moment. But we made it through. And the reason this is quite funny for me is that at the midpoint of this holiday, we made a deal. And that was that the next holiday that we go on, we're leaving the children at home because it was too triggering for both of us, right? And as a friend, like to be able to go through that experience with someone, it made me realise how far I've come on the journey of personal development, and also how far the people around me have come. Because the people that I surround myself with, they do a lot of work, right? They do a lot of work on their inner child. And if you'd have talked to me even just, 5 years ago and said, oh, you need to do some inner child work, honestly, I would have been like, seriously, fuck off with your inner child work. Like, to me, that was kind of, it was kind of like dealing with shit that was so far removed, and it was like so past, and it was messy. I was like, look, I want to resolve this thing, but I don't want to talk about my past. I don't want to talk about my childhood. And I don't want to talk about all that shit. I just want to move forward. But I now understand that all of my triggers and all of my challenges that I'll have in my current life come from things that happened when I was a child, right? And the only way that you can actually move through and live your life happy AF is if you have awareness as to what these triggers are. So it was a really interesting holiday because those of you that know me well know that I don't do relaxing. I'm not a very good relaxer. I really have to practice at the concept of relaxing. I'm a bit of a do, go, be. I don't tend to sort of, or actually be is the bit I'm practicing. I'm a bit of a human doing, not a human being. So going to a Fijian island where I get to sit and relax and don't really have to go anywhere and don't really have to do anything. Like, it took me, 3 or 4 days to kind of ease into that. And off the back end of a intense workshop, and then turning up and being triggered by all these little mini events that probably weren't that major, there was this massive learning piece that was going on for me. So by day 5, okay, which is when I was going to record a show for you guys, I was like, oh my God, like there's no way. I don't even know. I feel like I don't know how to string a sentence together at this point. So I decided to just embrace the relaxation. And I spent a couple of days on this holiday, literally with my daughter laying in bed on my computer whilst she sat there on her iPad and trying to not go into beating the shit out of myself that I had gone all the way over to Fiji and I was laying in bed and I wasn't doing something. And it made me aware of this pattern, right? Because we do patterns. Everything we do is a pattern. So me not relaxing, that's a pattern. Is it serving me? Well, it serves me sometimes. Me going on holidays and then beating myself up for not doing everything. Like, hands up who's ever been on a holiday and felt like they had to like go there and do this, tour and then visit this person and go and do this. And by the time you get back from your holiday, you think, oh my God, I need a holiday from my holiday. Can anyone relate? Well, that's what it was like, right? But by day 6, I was so proud of myself. We had 2 days, 6 and 7, where we just lay there. We did nothing. We didn't even leave our room until the end of the day, where we decided we better go and get some dinner. And then on the last day, I had this nice relaxing day where I hung out with my daughter and we got to connect and we got to really enjoy each other's company. And I really did a bit of a synopsis on this holiday and what it had been like, right? And I really noticed a few patterns with myself. One of which is that I am getting slightly better at relaxing or slightly better at becoming aware of when these challenges occur, okay? And better at picking myself up on them. I still beat myself up a bit, but not as long as I would have in the past, right? And I seem to get back on the horse quicker. So I'll notice the pattern, I'll catch myself, and I'm able to move through it relatively quickly. And so I kind of wanted to share that with you because I think that everyone thinks people that go on holidays, everything's like this amazing experience. And there was a lot of growth. Like there seems to be a lot of growth in my life right now, which means there's a lot of discomfort. But I am embracing it and I'm running towards it. And as I run towards it, I find that it's almost like there's a surrendering that occurs. And so therefore I get the lesson quicker, which means I then get to move on. So I guess that was my rambling way of saying that, right? I guess what I'm trying to say to you is that the way I frame my entire life is that, you're either learning and getting a lesson from something, right, which is a result, or you're actually getting a result which is something you've specifically looked for. But often the lessons and the learnings are not the thing you're actually aiming for in the first place. Anyway, I'm going to finish up on that bit there and move on to this next brain thought that occurred to me when I came home. So when I got home, because my holiday had not gone at all according to how I had planned it in my head and how I had hallucinated it was going to be, and I had become okay with that throughout the holiday, and I ended up having a really good time, right? But not without a few speed bumps, right? Then midway through my holiday, I found out that when I came home, my room was not going to be ready. So I'd had some challenges, the flooring wasn't working, we'd had a leak, all of this stuff, and someone had come in to fix it. And it was all supposed to be finished whilst I was away. That was not going to happen. So I was coming back from a holiday and I was coming back to having no bedroom and some beautiful surprise guests, which very grateful to have the surprise guests. But now not only did I not have a spare room, to stay in, I now had extra 3 people and I was going to be living in my lounge room. And again, I went through this 24 hours of, oh my God, what are we going to do with that? And I went into this sort of spiral, but I caught myself. And yes, it did take about 24 hours, but I went into action stations, because I was now midway through my holiday and my dad said to me, I wouldn't have told you all of this stuff if I thought it was going to impact your holiday. But my little part of me that doesn't like relaxing was like, oh my God, we've got something to do now. It's okay. And so I actually found that the second half of my holiday, and I'm not sure if this was a win or not, but for me, it felt like a win. I felt like I was productive even in my laying there and relaxing. So I don't know, try working that one out. I lay there whilst organising, and that for me was very relaxing. So I think it's really interesting for you to have a look at the patterns that you do and really ask yourself, like, does it serve you? Don't worry what anyone else thinks, okay? Don't measure your happy and don't measure your success against what someone else thinks. Measure it against what feels good for you. Because for me, I had 24 hours in the midst of that was uncomfortable. I had a lot of discomfort, but none of it lasted very long, and I could see the growth, so I was okay. But what I found was that when I acknowledged that situation that came in halfway through that was, again, out of my control, because most of this stuff that was going on was out of my control, I noticed myself going into, okay, what can I control? And asking a better question, instead of focusing on the stuff that was completely out of my control. And as soon as I changed the question to what is in my control and what can I do with that, I started feeling like I was getting somewhere. So I was relaxing, but I was progressing. Anyway, I hope that made some sense. It made sense in my head. Now, I want to share with you this next thing, which is completely unrelated, but it was what happened for me as soon as I got home. I had a couple of days right, before I needed to get back to work, or actually 24 hours. I gave myself 24 hours, and then I had some clients, and I was super excited for that because I love what I do. But in the midst of all of that, I was like, right, I'm not going to do any work around those clients. I'm just going to relax and watch some TV and, just kind of assimilate back into home life. And I watched the coolest movie. Now, for those of you that are similar in age to me, you might have a healthy respect for Freddie Mercury and Queen. If you don't, doesn't matter. That's not really what this story is about. But I watched Queen, and I didn't know Freddie Mercury's story. I knew a little bit of it. But the reason I'm sharing this with you is that I've been asking a lot, I guess, I don't know whether you want to say universe or whether I've just been energetically putting the intention out into the universe with how can I be of service? How can I show up? How can I share what I've been given to positively impact people? How can I help more people get happy? How can I teach more people and show more people that they have the capacity to shine bright and, live light and have a good life and be free from anxiety, depression, addiction, all of this stuff? Like I ask these questions all the time, right? And two things happened. I watched his story, right? And if you like Queen, go and watch Freddie Mercury's story. It's on, I think it was on Netflix. If you don't like Queen, do you know what? And you want to actually do something impactful in life, go and watch it because it was so inspirational for me. But the thing I loved so much and what I got from watching this film was he was just like this guy that was unapologetically him. And I know I speak about this a lot, but it takes so much courage, right? So much courage to be yourself. It takes so much courage to be yourself and shine bright and not care what other people think and really just have faith and trust that whatever is whispered in your ear as an idea is something you have the capacity to bring into light, right? And it was so cool just watching the way that he navigated through his life. Now, I'm sure there's a lot of Hollywood with it, but just watching what this guy did and how he shone bright and he was unapologetically himself. And that was why people loved him, watching how he got the audience to engage with him was just amazing, right? And so for someone like me who right now is really on this mission to, grow this show and to impact more people and shine bright and do all of those things whilst not letting my inner critic go, who do you think you are, right? It was such a good story for me to kind of watch at this point in time because he had his critics, right? He had plenty of critics and plenty of people trying to take him down, especially because he had this huge set of teeth. And there's this line in the movie, and it's so funny. I think the guy says to him, he goes, "Oh, I want to sing in your band," and he goes, "Mate, not with those teeth. You can't possibly sing." And then he just cranks out this tune, and his voice is so freaking epic that these two guys are like, "What?" And he goes, "Yeah, I've got an extra couple of teeth, which gives me better vocal range." And then he just sings and you're like, oh my God, you have to be in this band, right? And so he had these teeth. And in Hollywood today, he would probably go and fix them. But even back then, he was like, you know what? I don't want to blend in. I don't want to be part of the crowd. I want to be shiny as fuck. I want to stand out. I don't care, And so I really love that, okay? And I think that for me, that really personifies everything that I'm wanting to teach. And I know that, I'm not 100% there yet. This is an ongoing journey for me as well, right? I want to take you along for the ride. But I definitely know that the version of me today versus who I was 3 years ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, I'm more and more giving myself permission to step into who it is that I want to be and to shine bright and care less about people's opinions as long as I like myself and I like what I'm doing. And I'm going to be my toughest critic. So there's nothing you could ever say that is going to be more critical than what's going on in my own head. And, it was interesting because after watching this show, my dad sends me this video with Jordan Peterson, and it was a breakdown of an interview that he did. And it was all about storytelling, and it was about how to become a good storyteller. But it was completely the same as this thing I had just watched, right? Because I'm looking and I'm asking for these messages, right? And he tells this story about zebras, right? And it's really interesting. The way he frames it, he goes, if you understand this, you will understand everything about the human race. And I'm like, all right, I'll listen to that. That sounds pretty important, right? And he talks about how when there is a whole heap of zebras, okay, a lion cannot figure out, like when they're all together, they blend in, right? They don't have camouflage. They stick out like, dog's balls, let's be honest. You look at them in savannah, you see stripes everywhere, you can see them. A lion blends in, right? They all look the same. They blend into the background. Zebras don't, right? They're white and black, but when they're together, they look all the same, okay? And so there were these researchers trying to do some documentary, and I'll stuff the story up because the bit that I got was this part, right? The lions always have to go for the zebra that's maybe the small one or the weak one because they hunt as a pack. And so they have to be able to differentiate one zebra from a whole heap of zebras. Now, if you get one lion together and say, hey, it's that zebra there, they put their head down for a second and they look back up and they've lost which zebra they were trying to chase after. So then they don't get it, right? So these researchers, they grabbed like a red stick and what they did was they painted a red dot on the bottom of these zebras so they could figure out, once they were doing research, which one they had actually started the research on. And of course, what happened? The lion killed them every single time, the one that had the red dot, because now that that zebra stood out in the crowd, right? So you got Freddie Mercury over here, who back in the day when he started, he was completely different, right? He was out there, he was crazy. I saw his first show, he broke his microphone, he had this stick, it was so uncomfortable. And he didn't care, he kept rocking out and he was amazing. And today you listen to his music and anyone that's my age that kind of grew up on that stuff and a bit older, oh my God, we know every song, every word, and we love it, right? So he stood out. He was unapologetically him right to the very end. Jordan Peterson basically tells a story about this zebra who stands out and gets killed. And that is the number one thing that stops people like me and anybody else on the planet from going out after that thing that they want, whatever it is. That is the thing that stops us all from shining bright, is the fear of, if we shine bright, it is like putting a bullseye on us with which we are going to get taken out. And so here, on this closing note, I'm going to finish for you with this. Yes, if you stick a bullseye on your butt, you may get pulled out from the crowd and you may get people shooting you down. But you know what? If you know why you are here and you know what you are doing, it doesn't matter what anybody else thinks. You will never, ever, ever, ever live a fully expressed life until you let go of that and you just do whatever that thing is. And that to me is the absolute essence of what Happy AF is all about. It's about going out into the world and sharing whatever it is that you want to share, okay? It doesn't matter who you are or what you want to do, what you want to be. There is something that is special for you. So stop comparing yourself to everybody else. Give yourself permission to put that bullseye on your butt and accept that, you might get shot down. But you know what? All I know is that when I reach the pearly gates or, wherever else I might end up, here's what I know. I don't want to get there and ask myself, shit, or tell myself, God, I wish I'd taken that chance. I wish I'd done that. I wish I'd tried this. I want to get to the end, whatever that may be, and I want to say, mate, I left nothing in the tank. I did absolutely everything. So on that note, I want you to think about that. Are you living your life fully expressed? Are you living in the Happy AF way, unapologetically? Are you giving it a red hot shot, shining bright and just doing what you want to do and being who you want to be? Because if you aren't, then it's time to do a bit of a audit. It's time to kind of bit of a check-in and see where you're at in life. All right, on that note, I think I've rambled on enough about that. Shine bright, beautiful people. I'm sure that there is a whole bunch of other stuff I really wanted to remember to tell you, but I'll have to tell you in next week's episode. So on that note, have a beautiful, beautiful day. Shine bright. Make sure you have subscribed to this channel. You've turned your little notifications button on so you do not miss any of these updates, and share it with your friends. I'm sure you've got some friends that could do with a little bit of a Happy AF, and you might need to give them a bit of a language warning to not listen in front of the kids, or a bit of a do as I say, not as I do situation. On that note, love you, leave you, bye.